Howdy, all. We have a full crew here. Kevin Allen will be joining us in a moment. Just wanted to start with this because I was at the Leafs-Sabres game last night, and a lot of stuff is going on in Buffalo sporting-wise, and it's just as an observation of where the franchise is and where the focus of Buffalo is. The Bills made the playoffs after not being in the playoffs for, I believe, 18 straight years. 99 was their last playoff game, home run throwback, and then they made the playoffs this year on a miracle. And even though they may take a little bit of a step back this year, they're capturing the excitement of the fan base here because they're making trades. They're doing a lot of things. It's very positive after years of negativity about the Bills. The University of Buffalo has the biggest upset in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Beating Arizona, which nobody expected because one of the big center from Arizona is expected to go top 2 or 3 in the NBA draft.
Was that your school, Mike? Did you go to University of Buffalo?
No, I went to Buffalo State.
As I thought. Okay.
But I have a lot of friends who went to UB, so I was very happy for them.
My brother went there. I mean, if it matters.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like I went to the big sports bar with Russ, and I were there at the for the 2016 draft. 716, the big sports bar.
Yeah.
And the place was loaded with Leafs fans and Buffalo and University of Buffalo fans. I saw maybe 3 people wearing Sabres jerseys. And that's where my point is here. UB is captured for the moment the excitement of the sports fan in Buffalo. The Bills are making the playoffs. And if you look at what happened last night in the arena, the Sabres got booed when they announced we're live, Kevin. When the Sabres were announced, it was, I would say, 90% Leaf fans. The Sabres were booed every time their name was, the public address announcer was saying, "Here's your Buffalo Sabres," and they got booed relentlessly. And the Leafs won the game, and every time there was something that was pro Buffalo, the majority of fans, which were Leaf fans, were really raking the Sabres over the coals. And I think that's just sort of reflective of where things are right now. I think the Sabres, and I'm not blaming Jason Botterill or Phil Housley because they're new on the scene, but the organization and the ownership really have to come to grips with the fact that the fans in Buffalo are completely and utterly frustrated with the incompetence that has been shown over the last few years and the bad luck that they've had. And they better do something to turn it around, because I think there's going to be a great exodus of season ticket holders. It's a bad scene right now, and they have to turn it around, because this is a great franchise, but they have to turn it around, because right now it's not pretty.
Yeah, but it's too much pressure to say it's got to turn around in 1 year. Like it's only year 2 of his regime, right? I mean, it's not his fault.
No, just give them something positive. That's what I'm saying. There's been absolutely nothing positive about this year, Russ. Eichel gets hurt. Oppozo gets hurt. The goaltending situation is in question. The defensive situation is completely in tatters. They didn't get what they expected for Evander Kane. All these things. There's been not one positive thing, except maybe the second half of Sam Reinhart, on the entire Buffalo Sabres scene. And that's,
I think next year you can look forward to Casey Middlestat. That's positive.
Yeah, I think they got some good players coming. When you watch them play, they're not. This is, I mean, I don't know. Like I wrote an article like earlier about a month ago, watching them play and saying this Sabres team's not. They're going to be good. Like you watch them and you feel like I feel like when I watch them they're going to be good. I think they remind me of other teams early on. I mean, the issue is they lost a bunch of years there, and they had sort of a fake or 1 or 2 fake rebuilds. But I feel like they actually started a rebuild in the right direction now, and it feels like they are in the right direction.
You're the eternal optimist. I mean, I would say 80% of the fan base don't believe what you're saying about the Sabres.
You know what? I'm usually optimistic too, but I don't agree with that. When I watch that team, I just don't see there's enough. One thing that struck me when I watched them early is that Tim Murray left that cover a lot more bare than people realize. I don't see that they have a ton of great players coming. I think they have some coming, but I'm a big believer in Botterill, and I think Phil Housley is going to do a terrific job. But Botterill changed up this team quite a bit, and he didn't get the impact. I think that's where the fans are most frustrated. Like, he had the opportunity to at least make some strides in the off season, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And
Kevin, I think you raised a good point where you say he didn't have the impact. He changed up the team, but part of changing a team and looking at things is you need to understand if you change a team thinking what you change is going to have an impact, you better be sure to understand that when it doesn't have an impact, that you figured out why. And I'm curious if the Sabres have figured out why, because in theory, I think it would be a fairly safe consensus to say they should be better than they are. But why aren't they? Is it just injuries? And do you gamble on that for next season? So in that case, that's a strategic sort of viewpoint that Botterill is going to have to take. And he's going to have to justify it to himself, to ownership, and say, we're going to be better simply if we're healthier. Now, that's a gamble because you can't guarantee health. But if you look at the team, I'm more on the side of there's a lot of great pieces here, but these pieces don't fit together the right way. And that's where the change has to be.
But I mean, they do have Brendan Gooley coming, and Middlestat might play for the team next year. That's without making any free agency moves. Then after that, you still have Will Borgen, who's in the playoffs with St. Cloud, and you have Olofsson ripping up the SHL, which means he'll probably come over and at least play in the AHL next year.
Right.
Plus, who they get in this year's draft. Now, to me, if I'm a fan, that's what I'm looking at.
And Ullmark might be their starting goaltender next year.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, for the acquisitions that Botterill made, like the biggest impact that Nathan Beaulieu, and I was pro that move, trading and getting him for a 3rd round pick. The biggest impact that he's had this season was the right hand that he threw at Matt Martin last night. Other than that, he really hasn't had much of an impact at all. And to Kevin's point, a guy like Alex Nylander, who was picked 8th overall, his first year was sort of a disaster in the AHL. He was injured. He started this year injured. He's not putting up great totals. And remember, this is a situation where this is a new general manager, and he's gonna value the assets accordingly. But this was the asset of another general manager, and if he doesn't turn out, then he could be free to move him out and move somebody that he likes in. So it's a tricky situation, and
They're years away, I think, though, from moving out of Nylander.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but the point is, Russ, and you're in better position to answer this than any of us, but. You know, the thing about the Sabres prospect list is Middlestat is an A prospect. We all know. But how many other A prospects do they have?
I mean, they don't have any other A's, but I would say Olofsson at this point is a B+. I mean, in a league against men, he's got 20-something goals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I've asked around people about the Sabres, they all say the same thing. They got a few guys, but it's not like it's overwhelming. Like, there are some teams, obviously, that have a lot of premium players that are going to kind of step in, and Buffalo's not there yet. I just think that generally, as you mentioned with that, I'm usually pretty optimistic as well. But with Buffalo, I just think it's going to take longer than people realized.
I agree with that, Kevin, and I think the problem for Botterill is going on the idea that there wasn't a lot left in the cupboard. He also has to make some determinations of what way he wants to go. You can't just keep acquiring pieces without a direction of where they are. And what's compounding that problem is some of the pieces he has that people are saying, oh, they got a few pieces. We're not sure quite what they are yet.
Right.
Like, I go back to it. Zach Bogosian was supposed to be a huge piece. Evander Kane was supposed to be a huge piece, and they didn't work out. So now you're stuck trying to fill those holes. And this is the danger cycle that you get into. And Buffalo is really on the verge, if they're not careful, of falling into some serious Oilers level funk here.
Well, they're going to get a second. They're going to get a second A-level prospect in the draft because right now they're dead. They're dead last, and they're either going to get Dahlin or Svechnikov or Quinn Hughes or Brady Tkachuk or one of those guys. So I mean that's a positive for Botterill. But I'm just saying, right now they're in a tenuous situation with their fan base. They're starting to get tuned out. It's been too many years of being at the bottom of the league, and this isn't Arizona. This is a hockey mad market, but you got to give them something to be positive about. Otherwise, you're going to see thousands bail out on their season tickets, and they won't come back until the team turns around. So that's where they are right now.
Yeah, and you got to remember, I mean, this is a team that went hard after Babcock, right? I mean, at one point they went hard for Babcock. They went after Stamkos.
I was told that if they would have won the lottery, the Babcock would have gone to Buffalo.
If they got McDavid, right?
If they got McDavid, if they won the lottery and they got McDavid,
I mean, you never know. I mean,
right?
That definitely.
I'd guess not, but it's just a guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure. That's in Mike Babcock and his wife's mind, but I was told that, and also I was told by a couple Buffalo reporters yesterday that you can expect Botterill to probably trade, a significant player off their roster. I don't know. No, they didn't specify, but I don't think they're trading Eichel. But you could see them maybe trade Reinhart when his value is up, or trade Ristolainen in a market where next year the top free agent is John Carlson, and after that the defensive free agent market is really barren, and he's locked up for I think 3 more years in the $5+ million range. They could really reap a reward for Ristolainen. So be on the lookout for that.
To me, I would trade Ryan O'Reilly before I trade Ristolainen. They won't be able to get a Ristolainen. Even Brendan Gooley's not going to be Ristolainen. He's going to be good, but he's not going to be Ristolainen. Once you trade a guy like that,
right,
the replacement cost on a guy like that is too much. That's why I would trade a Ryan O'Reilly, and I think they'd have to eat some salary, but I think they can get a good take for him. That's what I would.
I just don't see that either. I mean, I mean, you live in Buffalo, so you're more wired more than I am, but I just can't see him knowing Botterill the way that I do and the way that he views things. Why would they trade Ristolainen?
Well, unless the organization has soured on him, and obviously he has to play top pairing minutes because I think he's clearly their best defenseman. He's a right-hand shot. I mean, I would take him on any team that I would run. I mean, if he was out there in the market and say the Leafs are looking for a right-hand shot defenseman, I hope they go after Ristolainen. So I agree with you, Kevin. It strains the bounds of to think that they would trade him, but if they win the lottery and they got Dahlin, then maybe all bets are off.
You never blame a young defenseman, in a situation like this. I mean, that's the worst thing you can possibly do. I mean, and then when you have a team like this that has all these holes, he's the last place you would look. I mean,
Ristolainen is not the problem.
No, I agree.
And this is the same logic. And this is why I referenced the Oilers, because it's the same logic that might have Clefbaum traded this year.
Well, yeah,
this is it's wrong.
Let's transition to that, because I was curious at what Mark Spector wrote a couple days ago, and he was reporting, and I don't know if this was rumor or he had a source on this, but he was talking about a Nugent Hopkins deal to Ottawa involving Mike Hoffman. And if you look at the structure of the team, obviously they have Draisaitl. They're paying Draisaitl as a center. I know that they've been playing Nugent Hopkins on the wing with McDavid in the last few games. Yeah. So they're trying just to boost his numbers or whatever. But he was talking about an RNH for Hoffman deal with the Senators. And it would make sense for the Sens because they're not particularly strong up the middle. But I've heard, Kevin, that a lot of people think that Draisaitl is a better fit on the wing and not at center. And if he's a winger, they're overpaying him at $8.5 million a year.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. But I don't think that's to me. I guess that you can make a case that makes sense from Edmonton, but that's not their issue. No,
it's not. They've got so many more things to worry about.
Right, that's the thing. I think all bets are off, because don't you think Chiarelli's gone?
Yeah, I think 99% he's gone.
Yeah, so if he's gone, it's the new guy that's going to come in and make those decisions.
They want an interesting GM job, if you're a GM out there, to go to go of all the places you could go. I mean, it's going to be fascinating.
You get Connor McDavid.
It's fascinating. When can you ever jump in on that kind of thing?
But here's the thing: you get Connor McDavid, then you get the pressure of having Connor McDavid.
Yeah,
too.
But you'll take it. I mean, you take it any day of the week.
Yeah, you do, for sure. But I mean, what other job do you get? Yeah. Starting out with a piece like that. Because what's been lost in all the disappointment with the Oilers is Connor McDavid has been great again.
Oh yeah,
right.
He's been great again.
And you don't get a great cap situation either.
Well, people say that all the time, and we've talked about this on the show. If you look at go to capfriendly.com, and I ask everyone to do this as an exercise, and look at what everybody does. everybody pays 2 or 3 players a lot of money. Now, not quite as much, but everybody does that. So anybody can fit 2 or 3 players into their budget.
Especially one of them's getting the wrong money, and like Milan Lucic, that's sucking up a lot of cap space for them.
Well, it is, but there's mistakes elsewhere. And you look at what the Pittsburgh Penguins are paying. They're paying a bunch of guys a lot of money.
But Kevin, Pittsburgh's salary for what they're getting out of Malkin and Crosby is way undervalued.
And Kessel. I mean, it's like 3 of them.
Like they have 3 huge contracts, but they're getting 3 huge returns.
They all have over 70.
And I think the issue that everyone had with the Lucic signing was simply he's not going to live up to that, especially for the term. He wasn't that player anymore.
Yeah, they're paying Malkin and Crosby. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I think it's $18.2 million, whereas Kane and Taves are being paid 21, and McDavid and Draisaitl are being paid 21. That $3 million. That's the difference between.
That's an average player,
right?
Yeah,
average.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, don't start telling me, oh my God, they could, that extra money. That $3 million is just an average player now. I mean, that's the way it is. Like, I don't think that's the issue.
It's a 3 or 4 defensemen. Like it's like that's basically what it comes down to, right? Like,
or it's the $1 million added to the contract of a consequential player that you either you could lose in free agency. It could, that could be the difference between being able to keep Patrick Hornquist or losing Patrick Hornquist.
I don't think
look at it. You could look at it that way.
I mean, I would think they'd find if it was just $1 million, they'd figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah, I think so.
No,
all right, we got to start the show. Actually.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
I know we actually have and then we got some other things to get into too here. So let's go from here.
Peter,
hello, Hockey World. You've been listening to. Today is Wednesday, or no, it's Friday. Today is Friday, March 16th, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Peter Tessier.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen from USA Today Sports.
And I'm Eklund. We got a full lineup today. We got we can pull the goalie and have an extra skater on at any time.
I like that.
You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. It's the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And it's Friday, so I think we should bring back the old that we drink on Friday tradition that we used to do a long time ago. I could use a drink right now. I don't really drink.
Straight gin. It's right here.
Straight gin, right? Yes. Diet iced tea. But anyway, that was an old tradition.
Continuing our conversation.
Go ahead.
Just to tie it up. The only point I was making is about the Oilers is that I don't think paying certainly nobody argues that paying Connor McDavid is that he's being overpaid, but some people think they can't afford even Draisaitl at that amount. I don't even think that's an issue. Now Lucic is a different. Like, I wasn't trying to say that.
Oh no, I know.
No.
Yeah, Lucic is.
I'm saying for the next GM, that is like
they made a mistake.
Problems.
Yeah, and that's a mistake that many people saw coming.
Yes.
Their problem is not at the top of the scale. It's the $4 million to Chris Russell. It's the $4.16 million to Adam Larson. It's what they're paying Clefbaum, and Clefbaum has been hurt this year, so his drop in play is tied to that. But we've heard rumors about him being traded, like Peter said, and see that's where the management of the Oilers get in trouble, because there may be good players there. What is Eberle doing with the Islanders? I think he has 24 goals. What's Taylor Hall doing with New Jersey right now? He's a potential Hart candidate. So these players didn't start sucking. They're actually good players. It's what's going on in Edmonton and why pieces don't seem to fit there.
There's pressure. There's a lot of fan pressure that puts pressure on the players. It's one of those markets now that has become very difficult to play in for players. It really has.
Can I just ask? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
You can turn around, though. I mean, this is the thing.
Absolutely.
If you're a GM, you go into that situation. I mean, you're like the. I mean, look at what Colorado has done turning around with less. With less than what Edmonton has.
You don't know who the Colorado owner is. In Edmonton, the owner needs to step back and stop bringing in the old guard and actually bring in people who could identify business problems in the front office, people who could identify talent. You got to stop relying on these old Oilers that aren't going to help them.
And the situation is that they brought in Bob Nicholson, they bring in Chiarelli, they bring in Todd McClellan, And 2 of the 3 years that group has been there, they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
And as Kevin said, and as has been out there, it could be the end for Chiarelli, it could be the end for McClellan as well. And if it goes back to sort of the old boy network that was in place before then, when it was like Kevin Lowe and Craig McTavish running, if all of a sudden Wayne Gretzky and Paul Coffey are the inner circle for the Oilers, I'm not optimistic for Oilers fans. I think you do need hockey men who purportedly know what they're doing running the show. Otherwise, this is just going to continue to be a cluster.
We have a lot of assistant GMs. I mean, look at what's happening in Carolina. There's a lot of assistant GMs that are qualified right now to gig on GM.
Sure.
I don't think we've had a better group of assistant GMs in a long time.
Right.
Don't you think, though, that the Carolina situation is one that we haven't seen in a while, where the assistant GMs may not be willing to take that job because you're not sure how much say you're really going to have. And
funny.
We've already seen with Fuda pulling himself out. I mean, he cast it as, it's the wrong timing and all that, but I wonder if he's looking at that Seattle job going, Lewicki knows who I am from his days in LA and so forth. And, that's going to be a more traditional setup. So,
and I think Seattle and Edmonton possibly. There's rumors that Minnesota might become open this summer.
Before
you go any further, let me touch on what Kevin just said there for a second, because I have talked to a couple of these assistant GMs who are involved in this process, and I haven't really gotten the sense, first of all, that as much is happening as is being reported happening by the assistant GM's spin machine out there. There are definitely talks. There are definitely conversations going on. This GM, this owner really likes to talk on the phone. I've heard that from a couple people. Like he'll talk to an assist. He'll talk to a possible candidate for a very long time about his team, and has like a lot of stuff out there. But I do think that some of this, I'm not willing to take the job stuff, is more about people who aren't really able to get the job than it is.
Mike Fuda is as qualified as a.
No, that doesn't mean he's not.
I know what you're saying about Fuda.
I'm not saying he isn't. It doesn't matter how qualified he is if this owner doesn't like him or doesn't blend with him. I mean, and that's what at the end of the day.
I mean, what you're saying is he's probably that these candidates who may not have been a perfect fit are using this survey as cover for down the line, and that's possible. All I know is the cautionary tale. When John Ferguson Jr. was hired in Toronto, in I think it was 04 or 04. And he took control with Pat Quinn as the coach, which was an awkward situation because Quinn was the former GM. He didn't have full control in Toronto. He had the MLS&E board, he had Larry Tannenbaum, and he had Richard Petty, who was the team president at the time, meddling in budgetary situations and player personnel decisions.
Carolina is you can't compare Carolina to Toronto.
Well, no, but I'm saying Dundon is asking for a direct line of communication with the GM and wants to be involved. That's what I'm saying.
Almost all owners do that already. I mean, that's
but not to this degree.
There's some way worse than others. Way worse.
There's no insulation there. If you go in there as a GM, there's very little insulation. And if you look at the front office there, they have a very small front office. They are lacking actual employees there.
There's no question about that. But
people doing dual jobs, 2 and 3 jobs, that's an issue. If you're going to go in there and try and take that over, that will eliminate a lot of very qualified people because they're not going to like that management structure.
Let me throw you a little business.
There are only 31 GM jobs out there. That's the thing.
Let me throw a little business element to this. You buy the team and you see where Karmanos is stripped down and run at bare bones. Okay, you're getting into this and you're understanding things. To Russ's point, there's a really valid point. You got a few people doing a lot of things, and that's a budgetary thing. Yet the Canes have the Tony Stark of analytics in there. No, I'm not going to get into analytics debate. I'm just explaining that's who Eric Tulsky is. They're expanding it out. One of the biggest gripes in the hockey analytics community is that the teams that pay for analytics, they don't pay very much. It's not in compare other industries that use that kind of methodology and service. So keep bearing with me here. the idea of this now is the change is not to identify what's going wrong or better on the ice and who's better on the ice. The shift with analytics now is to figure out who's going to keep you from making a bad decision like signing Milan Lucic. This is what's happening. And I think with Carolina, you're going to see a different approach to this because he's given the green light to hire more analytics people and expand the department. They're going to take a model where they're going to try and find efficiencies, not in the front office anymore, but to prevent themselves from having 7-8 year contracts for players they don't need because they don't fit. And it's going to take time. And I think the single reason why his name popped up, and this all fits together, is why Lawrence Gilman is probably going to take that job in there. And he's probably the only guy out there available right now who's played in that field and can bridge the gap compared to where the owner wants to go with in his front office services area and with the GM. I don't think there's another candidate out there who can do it. And I think it's Gilman's job to lose, really.
Here's my thought on all this.
Go ahead.
First, I think more people than not would take the job if offered, and probably a vast majority, because right, there aren't that many jobs. And when you got an opportunity, you got to jump at it. Yep. I mean, if Gelman is offered the job, of course he's going to take it. If if Ryan Martin Detroit was offered the job, he's going to take it. If Paul Fenton was offered the job, he's going to take it. Because they've been waiting. They've been waiting their opportunity. And here's the key thing. Now, nobody knows how Dundon's going to be as an owner. We're only guessing. Exactly. And the assistant GMs all know that. Like, we don't know. He could be the greatest owner in history of the world. He has no history. All we know is that. And look, and I've said this about the firing of Ron Francis, who, I thought had the team headed in the right direction. But, nobody gets, 4 or 5 years to build anymore. And is it unreasonable for Dundon to have fired him for a team that has missed the playoffs 9 consecutive years and the 4th time under Ron Francis? It's not. Something. It's reasonable to do that. The unreasonableness is he said the new GM is going to report to him, and that's what has everyone worried. But you don't know. I mean, he may want all that, and he may be wanted to be wired in. But Craig Leopold likes to be told everything in Minnesota too, But that doesn't mean he doesn't let Chuck Fletcher do what he wants to do.
Right.
So, all right, Kev. But let me ask you this:
every owner, every owner that I've ever met, wants to know with anything of significance happening with the GM. They want to know what's going on. I mean, it's completely, and it would be absurd for them not to want to go. It's whether the weird thing about this is he actually came out and said it. Okay, like he said it. He directly he said it, which gave some people who didn't have a shot at this the ability to say it's not right for me. But they knew they didn't have a shot at it anyway. I mean, I heard somebody use the excuse, I don't want to piss off Ron Francis by going and taking this job. I'm like, what the, like that sure,
okay. Yeah. But
it's not. That's the way the hockey world works sometimes. It's not. Okay. It's weird.
But they're down a couple positions in the front office. So when the new person comes in, who's hiring those positions? Is it the new person, or is the new person interviewing them, and then they've got to interview with the owner, and then the owner's going to decide that's something? And one other thing, this was lost on me until I just found this out recently. Yoni Pikkinen is a scout for them. Is he really the guy you want scouting overseas? Like, this is a guy who had no previous scouting experience. These are the kinds of things you have to get under control when you're a new owner. And so that's the part that I'm talking about.
That is what he is saying to people, Russ. I mean, what he is saying to people that I've talked to is he wants to get this under control. Like, his whole thing is, we need structures in place. We need this and he's looking at a situation that he's coming into that in his mind is completely out of control. So all he's saying is, listen, I'm gonna take over this for now. And he's not saying he's gonna be like this crazy hands-on owner. He's going to be a hands-on owner because he feels like he has to be right now because of the situation, and he owns the team, and he also doesn't mind the fact that Carolina's name is getting mentioned by the media, and that's also a good thing. So he's okay being a little controversial, I think, but at the same time, but the people who've actually spoken to him say he's way more reserved than you would think. He's way more like, I want this to be structured. I want this to be done the right way. I want to make sure our moves are solid.
Remember his background too, Eck, and that plays right to what he is. He's a venture capitalist.
Yeah,
that plays right into the wheelhouse of controls,
right?
Placement, research, systems.
He's
like
all about
do
that.
your homework, work your plan your work your plan, and grow and do it smart. And you know what? I've yet to meet anyone in the venture capital industry who is not somewhat controlling, just like artistic people, like creative people. There's an element of control that they have to have. Absolutely. Now, let me ask this. We don't know a lot about him, but who would you rather have more hands-on? Eugene Melnick? Like, take your pick. We have two owners who have recently said, I'm getting involved and getting closer to the team. Like, I know who I'm choosing right now, and it's not Melnick.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, we know Melnick, right? We don't know this guy. Even other owners, I've talked to other owners, even guys who are really are influential owners, have said, I met him once. You know, it's funny because when I tried to get to know him and tried to find, I went through people I knew, right, and just see like, okay, who knows him, who could set me up with an interview with him, that kind of thing. You know, eventually just went to Carolina, the Hurricanes themselves, because so many people had said, wait, I met him once. He's nice. I don't really know him that well, though. You'd just be just as good going, you know, through Carolina. I'm okay, fine. You know, we really don't know. They don't know much about him, except for the fact, I think, that people at the NHL like him. And some people I respect at the NHL like him a lot. Which tells me something that and those are the people who've really gone out of their way.
But that doesn't mean every assistant GM or GM wants to work for him. That's
but they will, like Kevin said, they will if they can, because I mean, like look at Botterill. How many people interviewed for that job? You know, so many people interviewed for that job in Buffalo. All these guys are interviewing for this job, and
there have been concerns in Buffalo about Terry and Kim Pegula sort of meddling into player personnel decisions, and how only like on the Buffalo Bills side of it, only when they brought in the duo from the Carolina Panthers has that gone by the wayside, because they seem to be in control. You know, owners are owners. They have money. They own the team. That's their, you know, they can do what they want with it because they own the team. But there are not many owners who are so attuned that they can actually, you know, manage a team. You know, I mean, Jerry Jones tries to, Mark Cuban tries to, and that's one of the things with Dundon. He's associated with Cuban, and maybe that's unfair. And the one difference is that the NHL, like you just said, they seem to like Dundon. The NBA does not like Mark Cuban. They don't like the way he acts. They don't like the way he mouths off. They don't like his personality. They just bear it because he owns a team. He can do what he wants. If Dundon doesn't operate like that and operates more conservatively, then I think this is all, you know, much ado about nothing. But if he tries to, you know, sort of buck the trend, I don't think it's going to be successful.
But wait, I mean, remember, Charles Wang was conservative, but he wasn't a good owner, but he still was conservative.
Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't mean, I mean,
he was ultra conservative.
This is a league that tolerated Harold Ballard.
Well,
Kevin brings up Craig Leopold, and it's a really interesting case because Craig is a hands-on owner. He does like know what's going on, and yet he has never fired a GM in how many 30 years?
Yeah, that's right. Craig Leopold used to like to sit in Barry Trotz's office when he was owner in Nashville after the game.
Yeah.
And I have seen
never fired a GM. I mean, this is incredible.
Very hands-on, and I have seen Mark and Chevy meeting as well after games and just chatting, and it happens. But it's the boundaries.
Let's look at it this way. And I use this word too, and it's probably the wrong word. You know, I always use, he over meddles is what I say when owners get too involved. But is that really accurate? Because it's their team. They can do whatever they want with it. Now, let's just use Ed Snyder and Mike Ilitch. Now, could there be two more owners who were more involved in their teams?
Sure. No.
Now, do we think both of those were good owners? I think we do. I think we think Ed Snyder was a good owner, and I think we think the late Mike Ilitch as well was a good owner. And Ed Snyder
made the Flyers sign Ilya Bryzgalov. Think about but still Ed Snyder is legendary. He's the whole team, and Ilitch I'm sure did things like that as well, perhaps in Detroit, but still legendary. These are legendary owners, and because at the end of the day, what fans want out of owners, I always believe, is passion. They want the owner to look like they care about what's happening, and if they make a mistake because they care about what's happening, they're okay with it. Like the Flyers need a goalie,
and George Steinbrenner signed Steve Kemp and Ed Whitson. How did that turn out?
Right, but fans will always sit back and say, "I'd rather make a mistake."
Fans like Steinbrenner because
they love him
because he wanted to win.
Right.
And
that's all that mattered.
Ilitch and Snyder too, and that's how it comes down to. Like, oh sure, Bryzgalov was a bad sign, but we all said we needed to get a goalie, so he went and got what he thought was the best goalie at the time. Maybe it weren't great, but you know what? That's how it goes. And that's different than what you've seen in like Ottawa, for example. But there are different situations, and I think that's when fans get really pissed off when they feel like their owner isn't doing everything he can do. I get the impression that this owner in Carolina is going to do everything he can do.
You mentioned Ottawa, and it was interesting that the hubbub that was brought up by a Don Brennan article a couple days ago regarding he interviewed Bobby Ryan, and Bobby Ryan indicated that the Sunday before the trade deadline, he pretty much had some indication that they were gone. Him and Erik Karlsson were gone, that the team that they were going to backed out at the last minute. Now that's not any kind of great revelation, but for those who thought that the deal wasn't close, that's sort of an inner look at the fact that it was close. Now, I don't know whether I would assume that was
Bobby Ryan, but there's what do players know sometimes? Like that's he's hearing rumors from people all over the place too.
Right.
He's reading Hockey Buzz and the rest
right. And maybe his agent called him and told him what he heard too.
I never once wrote that Bobby Ryan and Karlsson were going
together. Well, yeah, I mean, I just used it.
but you're right. What you're saying there, I agree with you completely. And that
Hockey Insider did.
Yeah, I mean, let's move on to Seattle because Kevin wrote about Seattle, and I want to talk about Seattle because I think it's an interesting situation. I'll throw one thing out I heard about Seattle, Kevin. I don't know if this makes any sense to you because we haven't even talked about this, and I wanted to talk to you about it, but I'll do so here. So one person I talked to, I thought might be involved in Seattle, right? One of the people I thought, okay, this guy's probably going to go to Seattle. I said, rumor has it, you could be going there. And we were just having a conversation. He said, that's a crazy situation. I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. All right. This is what he said to me, which was a strange response. And I don't know if you've gotten anything like that at all from what you've seen.
The only situation, the sense I have in Seattle is that people are absolutely stunned and delighted at the fan reaction. And my take would be that the fan reaction was helped by the success of the Vegas.
Yeah.
If you looked at one of the fans I quoted, he said, we look at that and he said, that could have been our team. We felt like we should have gotten a better shake to get a expansion team, when Vegas got theirs. And, what's lost in all that is just how important this is to the league. Like they're the 14th largest television market in the country. Like they're bigger than St. Louis and Pittsburgh and Minneapolis, St. Paul. I mean, they're bigger than a lot of established NHL markets. And, they have the only element that's going to cause them, and I couldn't get a good handle on it. And to be honest, I just wanted this wasn't the area I was going into, but I didn't have a sense that all the arena situation is buttoned up. That was the sense I have. I mean, I think in general terms it is, but I know Lewicki, without going into specifics, said we still got work to do, and he said that the mayor needed to sign off on what was going on with the arena. So but I think this is all just a go, and the one thing he did tell me, which has kind of created some buzz within the marketplace, is 1,000 of the season tickets deposits came from Canada.
Yeah.
And they got some from Alaska and quite a few from Oregon. They even had some from the Northeast. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but apparently some people in the Northeast bought some.
A long commute.
It is.
No, they're going to sell them. They're going to sell.
There are a lot of businesses there too that are stationed that have Western offices.
That could well be.
That could be that too. Yeah.
But I think this is all very much and you got Bruckheimer who's involved, and Bonderman's a billionaire. Like I think the league is thrilled with the ownership group. Like Wiki, who's been around in 2 different organizations. Like this has got all the makings of a slam dunk. This is going to be a wonderful, situation. Now, the only thing I could say that's kind of a negative is, how do you follow the act of George McPhee?
Yeah. I don't think you even try. Like that's a whole different entity. I don't think you worry about that. You can't.
No.
And
doesn't matter whether you worry about it.
No, you're stuck with it. You have to follow it. You have no choice.
I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. But that's how you'll be judged. I mean, the standard for the expansion draft is so high.
You're a comedian, and Robin Williams just came off the stage. You've got that's that.
Well, and the other thing is, this is a point that's been made to me by another general manager. We've seen one of these now, and we'll do a better job to protect.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well,
will they? That's a really. I mean, can they honestly?
not every general manager made mistakes for the expansion draft.
No, not at all. George McPhee did a good job. But for example, would when David Poyle traded Neil, I think he would have. I think he felt like he was going to be able to make a deal, and he wasn't able to make a deal.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm just guessing.
And would that have changed, Kevin, had they not gone to the Stanley Cup Finals? Like, had he had more time to think about it? Because honestly, there was hardly any time for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I mean, that's
no. But if you go back, I mean, would Jarmo Kekalainen want William Karlsson back? Yeah, probably. But was he playing under the current coach? No, he wasn't.
See, this is what we learned about this draft, and what the future owners have to learn about. There are a lot of people in the NHL, a lot of players in the NHL that, given more responsibility, can be a lot better than they are.
Yes,
and that's what you have to look for. That's what Vegas did right. Vegas found the guys who, given more responsibility, are a lot better than they were.
I think NHL general managers will be more prepared for this upcoming expansion draft with Seattle than they were for the one with Vegas. I think, first of all, Vegas, I think benefited from the fact that they were the first in there. Even though the Raiders are coming to Vegas, they benefited from the fact that they were the first professional franchise to go in there. And I think what's important for Seattle is they're getting in before the NBA comes back. They're going to get first dibs on scheduling at that new arena. So, and that'll be a big thing for, if they get Saturday nights instead of the NBA, that's going to be a big thing for them. So I think it's encouraging, but I agree with Kevin. The one thing that, how do you follow up the success of Vegas? That's once in a millennium that happens.
The one thing they can do, Mike, is they could hire a consultant this summer and let that consultant eventually be the GM, and let that person already start getting some other people who could be scouts and stuff, and start scouting the talent, start going to the games.
Yeah.
Vegas did a very good job of that.
You are so bang on. You don't even need to have a GM, but you need to have the underlyings of what makes a hockey organization tick. And you can throw all the analytics in the pot if you want, but if you don't have people who can take information and data and make sense of what it is on the ice, don't even bother spending $650 million. That's exactly where you start. And we all know the teams that are doing it well and the ones that aren't.
Right. You need a GM. You need a GM in this situation who can build a culture and not just a team, which is tricky. Like that to me, like what the successful GMs. Poyle in Nashville, build a culture there. What's happening in Vegas, they build a culture there. It's way more than just building a team. And that's, like when you look at these assists, that's why like one of these assistant GMs, I wouldn't be the guy I would bring into Seattle. Like I would bring in Seattle, you've got to bring in somebody. It's got to almost have somebody like a Holland or somebody who's been involved in a hockey culture, and like McPhee was in Washington, like he built a culture there. Okay, what is that?
I have no idea.
That is a clock, and that's in my house. And if there's nothing I
just turned 2 o'clock.
It sounded like Mr. Softy was driving through your living room.
Yes. Can I have a vanilla with rainbow jimmies?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the good humor man just pulled up. So.
Okay, no, but you know what I mean. It's got to be a culture build, and that's the guy you got to get in now, like ahead of time, like you're saying.
I think I heard that Lewicki's brother Todd, who was a COO of the NFL, I believe, he left his position, and I'd heard something about him joining the Seattle organization. I don't know if that's the case.
He was in Seattle, in Tampa, and did an incredible job there.
Right.
The stuff that you see in Tampa with reduced pricing for season ticket holders, for concessions, and all that. Like, he was the president of the team, and he left there and ended up in the NFL. So he's a very skilled and savvy guy.
Yeah.
Let's extrapolate from that, because I think everybody is thinking this is going to happen sooner rather than later. Seattle is going to be, it's going to be they're going to be the 32nd team.
Yes.
And I know Eck wrote something on Wednesday regarding the potential expansion of the playoff format. And the reason it came up in the last couple of weeks is I had heard that Adam Silver in the NBA, they were talking about the potential of having expanding it to 20 with a 7 versus 10 and an 8 versus 9. And I know we talked about this before, Kevin, but if they go to 32 teams, And I know that John Shannon said that at the GM meetings, this is not even on the agenda right now. And Gary Bettman has come out saying he's not really for it. But if the GMs, if the ownership of the teams and the GMs want this, I don't know if it matters whether Gary Bettman wants it or not.
Well, it only matters in this regard. What Gary Bettman would probably say to owners is, "Hey, look, we're eventually going to go there. We don't need to do it now." Yeah. I think if he wanted not to do it, but he has said publicly that he is not in favor of this.
Right.
And we were all there when he said it. And there's been, I loved Larry Brooks's tweet about it, saying, of course this is supported by general managers because more of them want to protect their jobs.
I didn't see that, but I wrote the same thing. That's exactly what I was thinking. You're giving the GMs a chance to say, should we put more teams in the playoffs? Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, of course. He goes, that's not
I put this out to the fans. I put out 3 scenarios to the fans to vote on yesterday. And one would be just to keep it as it is. The second was to go to the 8th and 9th seeds, playing like 1 game to get in, and then the other being being all the wild card spots. Like, so the 7th playing 10th and 8th playing 9th. So you have the 20 teams, which actually is what I'm in favor of. If you're going to do this, I think you do it that way. But the fans, so over 2,000 people responded to this yesterday. 62% want to keep it just as it is. Only 9% want the 8th versus 9th, and then there were 29% who thought the 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9, two playing games was good. But fans want to keep this as it is, which is really strange because in a way, I mean, that's counterproductive to fans as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have said this for a while that I favored. I love the baseball scenario, but when I write it, I get crucified upside down.
Yeah.
Just because fans, as a general rule, love the tradition of the way it is, the 4 rounds. It's pure, none of this little play-in, no little dovetail.
Tradition of 2010. I mean, this was that long ago that we went to this, right?
But 4 rounds?
No, but of actually having like this playoff format that we're
it's not this format, the round. They like the 4 rounds.
They like the actual, okay. I
see what you're saying, 4 rounds of playoffs. But I love it because I love the baseball one. And, my argument is people say, well, it makes the regular season unimportant. Well, no, it doesn't. It makes it very important. It's what it says is, you got to get out of that little thing. It's your fault if you get in a spot.
Exactly.
Don't get in one of those spots.
You know what though, Kev? It also gives the league a chance to get out of this current playoff structure, which again, you had said the fans voted on and they went with it, and nobody seems to like it. It would get him out of that too.
I think it's more likely we'll get that changed though than this. I like both changes. I would like to see us to go in, and I think if you're the NHL, you sell that play into some other network. I don't care who it is. You create this kind of special, unique thing. I think the ratings on those games would be unbelievable.
It'd be great. I think it'd be great.
One game to for all the marbles.
Well, are you a fan of 8 versus? Are you a fan of just the one or the entire?
Well,
one?
The problem is you can't extend the season too much. So
they can all be played on the same night.
No.
Okay.
No. I figured this out. The regular season ends normally on a Sunday, and the playoffs start Wednesday, Thursday. You could have the play-in game played on Monday, the second one played on Tuesday, and start the playoffs on Wednesday and Thursday. It would not move the playoffs.
I mean, you're not extending the amount of nights by doing what I'm saying to do. Like, because you can have 2 games in one night. I mean, you can have like if you're 7 versus 10. So say right now in the East, it would be Columbus would play Carolina, New Jersey would play Florida. The winners of those would go on to be the wild card teams, and that's it.
Well, I haven't really sorted out in my head whether it's 1 or 2, but I just like the concept. I think I'd actually prefer just to have 1 starting out. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge is that a lot of these things are interlinked to other issues with the NHL. First of all, a lot of this ties into the play-in is, do you want to keep having, if you're going to open it up and have a play-in thing, do you want to keep having the current point system? Because that throws a bit of a wrench in how things are done too. Right. And one of the things that we've talked about in the past on the Buzzcast is the marketing opportunity and how it could be even better, and it's dwindling with the trade deadline. And if you're now going to keep more teams in it with a play-in opportunity to keep going, how likely are you to have the excitement of the trade deadline mean anything anymore? And teams so something's got to change there.
There is no excitement at the trade deadline. There was only 16 trades. There was nothing that happened.
It was really exciting. I couldn't wait to find out Carlson was traded. No, but the no, so
it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad this year. But here's my point.
Stastny was a great trade.
I thought you're going with that, and Kevin knows I'm a real big fan of it. Is the 3 points for a regulation win thing, which has to happen in my mind because we are seeing so many.
I agree. That's where I was going.
Boring games right now.
That's not going to change, so unfortunately.
But if you go, if you put 20, if you put a 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. You could do the 3 for regulation win and be okay. See, that's where, because when I've talked to the NHL before, of course, they're afraid that this is going to eliminate the terrible teams, but this would just make the playoff races incredible. If you had,
if I'm Don Fair,
it may be a good idea, but it's not going to happen.
If I'm Don Fair, I get some people in there, and I sort out a way that we can reduce the season by 6 games.
They won't,
and players will love it. Hang on. But here's what happens. You've got to find the way you restructure the revenue. But the revenue for the next 6 for the teams is guaranteed. So if your team wins, your players are going to get season performance values back from the league. And then you use that space of the other 6 games as your 2 mini series, best of 3.
I don't think they're going to
play in.
Give up. They'll want to do that with the 6 regular season games.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to do it. I'm not sure how to do it, but I think there's a way to do it.
Let me do my best Johnny Manziel imitation right there. Money, money, money. Not going to happen. They're not going to reduce.
It doesn't seem like to me the NHL would do. It seems to me like the NHL, just the way they do things is we're talking about 8 versus that we have this 1 playing game and it'll be 2. Like that's what it feels like will happen. Like that's the way the NHL would do it. They would say, okay, by the way, it's 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9, and that feels like because we're all like thinking there's going to be 1, like you said, Kevin. Why don't we just try 1? But at the end of the day.
And I actually
why not do 2? If you're going to do 1, why not do 2 and have the battle to be if you're a top 3 in the division? This makes the division races.
I actually think the excitement of a play-in dissipates if it's a best of 3. I've seen
that shouldn't be a best of 3.
We've all seen best of 3 series back in the late 70s and early 80s.
Oh, yeah, they were horrendous.
They weren't that great. So
no, they weren't.
But here, my point is, if you're a team, like, why would you, if you're the 7th team? Why should you have to? And what if you're separated by 10 points?
I agree.
Why should you have to play the 10th team to get in? Screw them. I just thought of
that.
Out.
I hadn't given that.
No way anyone's going to buy into that.
I'm with them on that. That's what
there's no way.
I think that. The last team.
What if you're
problem?
Yeah. What if you're 1 point for being 6th, but you're 10 up on the 10th guy, and you've got to play to get in? No way.
But if we did this, suddenly the Montreal Canadiens are 6 points out of a playoff spot, and now right now, like that, and the calendars. I mean, it would be crazy how you'd have these teams that should.
It's a weird
thing you have to say to yourself.
So many other elements to make this work, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, we'll just do a play-in for the bottom 2."
The other argument is that you can make a case that if the 9th is playing the 8th. But if the 7th team gets knocked out, is the other team?
I got it.
Is that good?
I figured it out, guys.
I think let me see if you. How about 8, 9, 10, and 11? 8 versus 11, 9 versus 10, and then the winners play each other, and the one team makes
too convoluted.
That's too much.
Here's my thinking. Okay, you have a possibility of you can go 7 versus 11. 8 versus or 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. However, to qualify for a play-in game, you have to get to 95 points. So
no one gets there.
No, so no. So no one gets, because what you don't want to have is, like you're saying, that you have like a 10-point difference or whatever, right? But if you have teams that were, say, 90 points, or pick a number that's reasonable that you can say.
You can't pick a number because there are years when teams with less points make it because everybody's bad. Like
remember,
there's no playoff game unless you get to 90 points.
Remember, this is a league that had the 4th place team in the Norris division, who was 40 points behind everybody else, make the playoffs. So a 10-point difference. It's in the history of the league. I don't think
I like what Tyler Dello said yesterday. He tweeted out, why not have 40 teams and you have a relegation and you can go up? Oh, yeah. Let's go.
No.
I mean, if you're going to have
relegated to the Swedish Elite League, throw somebody.
Here's my prediction.
Go
As
ahead.
a guy who's covered the league for 30 some years.
This is how it'll happen.
This is my prediction.
Here we go.
You're going to see a change in the playoff format so that we get away from divisional. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that.
I agree.
Eventually, but not this year. No,
not.
Eventually, but not soon, we will have a play-in game. We will not see a change to the old style 3-point or to the 3-point international thing. We will not
never see that.
No, that's my prediction on how it's going to happen. So, I'm aware that there is sort of an openness to the idea that we need to probably change the playoff format. I think that the league just doesn't like the fact that sometimes our top two teams have to play each other early, and I think they're kind of open to changing that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, this season.
Is this all scrolled in a couple tablets already, Kev? Is this?
Pardon me?
Is this already scrolled down on a couple tablets?
No, not really. But I do think that, and I think eventually, when they run out of ways to create ancillary revenue, they'll embrace the play-in game because that could be quite a bonanza. You can sell the television rights to a different network.
Yep.
Those tickets. How much are those tickets going to be? You could charge, Stanley Cup final prices for those tickets. One game, whether you're in or not.
Here's my prediction as a lockout guy. This will be a lockout issue. Like it'll be like, okay, during the next strike, we'll be talking about next strike / lockout. That play-in game, all the revenues go to the players, right? That's part of that's what we're gonna do. That's the Players Association play-in games. Anyway, that could happen. But here, I think the way to fix what we have to do, what I think they're onto something, but the problem is they always have to be so exact in either way. But what will work best? Keep it like it is now for the first round and just reseed after the first round. If you did that, that would save everything because I do like the second place third in divisions. And I do think the first, and I do think the top teams playing the wild cards. But then after that, after the winners of that comes through.
No, but see, the problem with reseeding is if you've beaten a team that has, let's say, home ice throughout, and you don't have a great record, all of a sudden you lose that. Like you beat somebody that.
No, you should never have home ice. If you came in 8th place, you should never have home ice. Doesn't matter.
Not if I beat the team that had it.
No. But the problem comes in the second round. The problem is not the first round.
Here, the top 2 seeds can pick their opponent, and after the first round, it's reseeded.
Oh, gosh.
There would be so many upsets because
let's draw names out of a hat.
New Jersey says Tampa picked us. We're gonna kill that. That's such great stuff. That would be such great drama because the team feels like they're being picked to. Oh man,
they would sell the event.
Here, Tampa Bay, pick one.
Yeah,
they would just kill it. The loser gets the first pick overall in the draft. All right. Yeah.
No, I quit your
the loser in the loser in the Stanley Cup final gets the first pick overall in the draft. That's what we need to do. That's our buzzer. Great. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us today. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Have a wonderful weekend. Lots of games on tap. Talk to you soon.